Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Bitcoin News Show. I am your host, Vortex, and you guys are right here on the World Crypto Network. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a couple of amazing guests today, but first, before we introduce them, I just want to do a quick announcement to let everybody know that the World Crypto Network just today has gone over 1 million total views, ladies and gentlemen, on all of our videos together. So awesome props to everybody at the World Crypto Network, and awesome props to you guys. Thanks so much for joining us in our live chat, watching our videos. We love to have you. So without further ado, let's introduce our guests. We have Gabriel D. Vine joining us from Future Rant. How you doing, Gabriel?
Great. Thanks so much for having me back. It's awesome to be back on the Bitcoin News Show.
Yes, sir. We missed you so much, Gabriel. We love your opinions. We love your viewpoints. And then, of course, we got Edward from Renegade Investor doing the best videos in Bitcoin that you guys can find. How you doing, Edward?
Yeah, hi Vortex. Thanks again for having me on, and brilliant, like amazing hard work gone into 1 million views. So well done.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. We're really proud of it. We really love to deliver the truth to you guys. We really love to talk about Bitcoin and crypto network, or Bitcoin and cryptography, and we love talking about it, sharing with you guys every other Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific. And finally, we have our special guest today, ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Shrem. How you doing, Charlie? Oh, you're muted, Charlie. It's a hover.
Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. There we go.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's the stupid thing. You have to hover over it. I don't know what Google's thinking, but that's the way it is here. So thanks so much, Charlie, for joining us. We know you got a busy schedule, so we're really happy to have you on here to talk about the subjects. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about Segwit2x and the Ethereum Flash Crash. So first, we'll just go right into Segwit2x, and we'll ask Charlie first, and then we'll randomize after that. So first, Charlie, can you tell us, what do you think about this Segwit2x, personal views on it, and do you think that it's going to happen with the recent 90% voting and hash power for the New York agreement? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think a real turning point in Segwit2x that it became compatible with user-activated soft fork. So because of that, and because of the whole game theory dynamics behind it, and miners, back and forth, and miners needing the nodes and nodes needing the miners, it's like a really perfect checks and balances. Because of that, this was a way for, I think, miners to save face and figure out a way to bring a compromise together. I mean, this is beautiful because it's decentralized governance. There's no leaders. Here we have a solution that has come to the table that the market has forced the miners, the market has forced the community, the market has forced the economic nodes of business owners, and everything's coming together. So I've spoken to a lot of core developers, many from my friends, and almost none of them are opposed to a hard fork, and almost none of them are opposed to a 2 megabyte hard fork. What they are opposed to is power and political plays, which I'm super opposed to. The core developers have done an amazing job at developing for Bitcoin in the past 8 years, and I think that they should continue doing it for as long as that they want to, and as long as that they should. And I'm opposed to smoke and mirrors. So this was a way for a technology to be built for not reinventing the wheel. There's not much new code being written for this. It's just the ability to flag for Segwit on the original BIP1 plus a hard fork for 2 megabytes down the road. And the hope is that Core will merge it. But if not, it'll still be compatible until they get to the hard fork, and at that point, it'll be decided on what's going forward. The idea is that once we have Segwit and the block size, because Segwit is a block size increase, and fixes transaction malleability and creates a lot of cool things, like to be able to add on different layers and Lightning networks and have different layers on the chain. The hope is that maybe people will kind of redo their sides and say, hey, maybe that we don't need a hard fork right now, or maybe we can wait another year, or maybe we will be ready in 6 months. There really isn't, like, we've done hard forks before. There really isn't like some crazy, scary factor to it. So that's the whole idea, is that get everyone working together and to figure all this stuff out.
Absolutely. I've said many times, that things can move fast. Trying to predict something out 6 months, I mean, that's just kind of a little bit ridiculous in Bitcoin now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, very cool. So let's go with Gabriel Divine. What are your thoughts on Segwit2x and it getting activated and having 90% of the hashing power right now? What do you think about all this, Gabriel?
I am not at all surprised at much of anything that's happened. I will say BIP 148, the movement by what you might call a rogue contingent within the Bitcoin ecosystem to rush the activation of Segwit in the face of seeming minor reluctance and certainly lack of minor signaling over the process of 6 months or so after last November, when the code was merged that allowed the miners to signal their support for the original Segwit BIP. I believe, is that 91?
Yeah, BIP 91 is, well, that's the mining. The original Segwit is BIP 141.
141, right. So it was getting, it was sort of hovering and stagnant around 30%. And I was a little bit taken aback that a rogue contingent, rather than doing some sort of soft fork maneuver that would activate sort of maybe just before or just after a failure in November. Instead, bam, they went right up for August 1st. So that was a little bit of a surprise, but nothing since then has surprised me. I have been very, let's say I've been doubtful, skeptical is the word, of the power that miners have over the choices that users make for software that they run. And I think the skepticism has been well placed, as events have shown us. And I was of the opinion when 148 came out that it would force the miners' hands successfully. But in the process, I also thought that it could create some real ego schisms and just personality schisms in the ecosystem.
But it's really not the case that the miners have all the power. It's not the case that nodes have all the power. It's a checks and balances system, right?
Yeah.
So the whole miner threatening to hard fork with Bitcoin Unlimited and everything, that's all game theory, and that's all to push people more to the middle, just like user activated soft fork was. I mean, Luke Jr. really took the helm at that, and he's the one who said, all right, I'm done with this bullshit. August 1st is the number. And I spoke to other core devs, and I was like a little concerned, like, are you serious? Like, Luke is pretty much taking over Bitcoin. Like, this is Luke. And like, no, this is all game theory. Like, Luke knows what he's doing. This is all like, and he's right. They were right. Like that's what this is all. It's a populist movement. I mean, I have the hat somewhere over here that Samson gave me.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I think that there was a lot of naivete about that before this situation. I think it's really great. A lot of people, I think, have learned from what's gone on in the political maneuvering. But I do feel that there's quite a bit of naivete that instead of among the power holders, I think there's a naivete right now. It's quite dangerous. And I came on the Bitcoin group on Friday in order to lend some support to Tone's opinions about this on that show, just for the one topic I wanted to jump in. And I kind of wanted to flesh out on what I was saying because Thomas didn't want to go over the time in that show, and we didn't quite have time to get into it. But what I wanted to say was we should not mistake signaling for running software.
Oh, yeah, signaling is glorified polling.
Right, exactly. So it's this sort of I would definitely not characterize it as a rough estimate of who's going to do what. Not at all. It's a game theoretical messaging that has its own sort of propaganda or messaging, public messaging role that is orthogonal to what software you run. So, Thomas and Jimmy Song on Friday were incredulous when I expressed the opinion that the fact that a miner would signal for Segwit2x has no direct relation to whether he'll run, whether he'll support a 2 megabyte hard fork or not. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and obviously Charlie's up with that. But don't mistake signaling for running software. As we saw in the Bitcoin Unlimited situation, this totally flawed and bug-filled software a bunch of miners were signaling that they were running it, but then when the flaws got exploited and it crashed the nodes, you saw that only 60% or 40% or whatever, some chunk were actually running it and the rest were faking it.
Yeah.
And they had a political motive. So we're going to see a lot more of this in the future, I feel. And it's great to be here on the ground floor where we can still make changes to the base protocol, because I kind of think Andreas Antonopoulos has a good point when he talks about the sort of glacializing of protocols. Over time, it's conceivable that the Bitcoin protocol could start to become even less mutable with time, and it's conceivable that we might not be able to push anything as major as segregated witness. It's a huge change. I mean, there's still a strong minority of a few percent, in my opinion, of the ecosystem, what you might call hardline conservatives, who are against Segwit and against any scaling of the block size limit. They want to keep Bitcoin from changing as much as they can, because they've seen how much success it's gotten. And I read some interesting critique of segregated witness today from Mark Wilcox, who's kind of really the only maybe naysayer that I've found has had a good contrarian perspective on segregated witness. And he was making the point that while it's not likely miners would collaborate on a 51% attack in order to, steal anyone can spend output from the network. Nevertheless, it increases the incentive for miners to collaborate on nefarious things. And he might be right about that. My only main critique of that is transaction malleability is a bug that is preventing the Bitcoin ecosystem from realizing its potential. And currently, segregated witness is by far the most vetted and tested bug fix for transaction malleability. So I feel like it's a little irresponsible to claim some moderately vague game theoretical disadvantages without also saying, I prefer this transaction malleability fix instead of Segwit. So I'm finding that a lot of the critique of segregated witness is just critique and not support of an alternate bug fix.
No, and there's really no Segwit is agreed by almost everyone across the board except for Craig Wright. That is an awesome piece of technology. I mean, Jihan told me on the phone. Roger told me on the phone. Like, these people have agreed that Segwit is awesome. Everyone has. It's not the issue. The issue is with Bitcoin Unlimited, at least, it was a political play. These are people that had issues with the core developers as a whole, and putting them into the same kind of entity is wrong, because it's just a GitHub repository that anyone could really be a part of. But they wanted to remove all the core developers' ability to actually work on Bitcoin forever, and then have Bitcoin reference client be controlled by a very small, actually like 2 developers. So that would be really bad. But it was a power play. Like you said, no one, like Bitcoin Unlimited software was just a fork of Bitcoin Core with a signaling for BU. And then when they actually started like changing it and adding their own shit to it, it started crashing like all the time.
Yep, very true. I think that everybody has seen the screenshots of this point of the nodes of Bitcoin Unlimited. And this kind of goes to another point where this is not the first time this has happened, right? We've had Classic, we've had XT, we've had all of these people, all of these teams trying to fork Bitcoin, or threatening to fork Bitcoin and have miners go off on them. But we've seen that this is just idle threats and posturing, right? Nobody has forked off yet. It's been 8 years and nobody's gone off yet. So Bitcoin continues to thrive. We'll go to Edward now. Edward, what do you think about this Segwit2x and the 90% so far of signaling, and Segwit being completely unanimously agreed upon as a good technology?
Yeah, and I think it was always that way. I mean, I run the, well, co-host the Bristol Bitcoin Meetup group, and one of my friends who goes there, he runs a blog called See Bitcoins, and he said for ages that all of the posturing around Bitcoin Unlimited, and now you got Segwit2x was purely as a delaying tactic to, in his opinion, for the miners to drive up the fees, which is exactly what it did. It took the average blog reward from $85 up to 1,000, which is equivalent to like the 2013 run up in price after the Silk Road closure. So for miners, it's been absolutely colossal. And the most important thing this has taught me, because at one point I was just so confused about the scaling debate. I was like, none of this makes any sense to me. It's like, here you have a completely verified, excellent solution to scaling Segwit, like the vanilla Segwit, the BIB 141, which is production ready, fixes a whole host of different things, including transaction malleability, and builds like, you know, the platform for layer 2 scaling. I'm like, why on earth would you not? But I wasn't looking at it from, I was looking at it from a common sense perspective instead of looking, like the others have said, into game theory. And that is the biggest lesson that all of this has taught me. The biggest lesson that all of this has taught me. And I was just thinking to myself, the game is this, okay? The game is to get as many Bitcoins as you can before you hit the exponential growth curve of the exponential growth phase of S-curve adoption. That is the game. So Bitcoin is like a massive multiplayer online game. And in order to do that, the miners had to delay the scaling in order to drive up the fees.
The miners have been making the most amount of money with this.
Yeah, so they sacrificed the stock price of Bitcoin, because investing, you have the stock and flow, in order to increase their flow to get the massive transaction fees. And they know for a fact that deep down, I think they all know that Segwit was always the way to go. But for them, it was just a brilliant way to drive up the fees, get the cash flow. Then once it's already signal Segwit, then you go to the moon once you've accrued all that Bitcoin. But the thing is, once you get to the exponential growth curve, your ability to accumulate a lot of Bitcoin ends. You know, once you start hitting like your 5-figure Bitcoin, like for the, you know, for the average person to accrue a lot of Bitcoin is going to be extremely difficult. So
agreed.
And when you think about it, the actual time that you have before the S-curve is actually, in the grand scheme of things, relatively small. So for the big players as well, it's beneficial for them to delay it, knowing that it is probably going to hit the exponential growth curve once you sort out the scaling solution. And this is what it taught me. And the other last thing that happened this week, I was chatting to a guy called Javier Marti from Bitcoin Global Investments. We had a really long chat. And he's been really good at predicting stuff in Bitcoin, going all the way back to 2013. I've known him for 4 years. And I started talking to him about all this scaling stuff coming up. And I was expecting him to be very, you know, animated about it. And he was just like, I'm not worried. And, you know, he's like a professional psychotherapist. He understands psychology. And he goes, do you really think the OGs in Bitcoin with, you know, 100 million in wealth are really going to come in here, risk a serious hard fork, the potential of wiping out the main value proposition of Bitcoin, which is that it's a consistent store of value, like, and risk it in a hard fork? And that is why we had the UASF, which was then to force the BIB 148, and that was technically social ostracization.
Yes,
it was attempted social ostracization.
And that's the beauty of the free market. Yep, I have to give it a hand.
That's the beauty of the free market. Yeah, and that is it, and that's why, instead of, like, I think the push for regulation, it's just, well, hang on, look, this is how things are resolved in a free market. We had a
let me ask you a question. This is why I think this whole scaling debate is one of the most bullish things that could happen for Bitcoin in the whole entire world that I could like think of right now. Because here, this is decentralized. This is a solution that the market has brought us, and this is game theory dynamics and all the power people at play and everything just working itself. This is how it unfolds. Would you rather have this, or would you rather have the Ethereum Foundation making decisions for us and potentially even the risk of a solution that's not optimal? This is the most optimal solution we have. We have Segwit plus a 2 megabyte hard fork. That's what the overall community and market hopefully agrees to. If not, then we'll see what goes on. But this is what we're going to get. And I trust the market to play itself out and take a longer amount of time. So yes, it took 2 years, but we're getting the best solution. And so I'd rather have that than have some small group of people say, all right, we're just going to try this. And if it doesn't work, then we're just going to roll back the blockchain, and to hell with immutability and to hell with everything else. We're just going to do what we want. And I'm not just talking about any of the other power chains here. I'm talking about just all of them.
Yeah, and that is the absolute beauty of it. That is the absolute beauty of it. And the fact that it was the UASF bid 148, which was the attempted social ostracization of a bad actor that was preventing a beneficial update to the network, which brought us Segwit2x. Whether we get the hard fork, I don't know. But if it's an avenue for us to activate Segwit, then wow, like that's amazing, and it sets a precedent going forward that
It does.
we know now how we can resolve these kind of things without any centralized government intervention or any
Compromise.
centralized party.
I don't think that this was a compromise. I think this is a face-saving gesture, and I don't think there will be a compromise. I don't think the hard fork will go through. I think they're gonna find it extremely difficult to convince the economic nodes to go ahead with a block size increase this year. Maybe it'll succeed in a year or 2 or 3 or 4, but I really doubt they're going to be able to do it. We'll see. That the miners really,
most of the economic nodes have signed up for the New York agreement. So which ones would you have to convince?
Excuse me, not economic nodes, just general nodes. So just the wider node message relaying network, maybe the non-mining nodes or smaller pool miner nodes.
Sure,
sorry, non-economic nodes. I think that the economic nodes, the power players, the captains of industry, the New York Agreement people are going to find it very difficult to get the mom and pop CTO, like the nephew of the miner, whatever solar farm in Kenya who knows about computers. It's going to be really hard to get those hardcore ideologists on board with a hard fork now. The hard fork contingent have really failed, in my opinion, to come up with actual scientific data, engineering outlines of the necessity of a hard fork for larger blocks now. And the counter arguments are too strong. I feel that they will fail. I predict that they will fail with between now and say 2 years from now. Maybe at that point, we're going to start seeing some organic traffic and organic transaction volume that will necessitate this. But right now, the transaction volume has all the hallmarks of what you might call spam attacks, or at least network attacks, in order to give the impression of very full blocks. But as soon as they run out of budget for these attacks, you notice that the transaction volume goes way back. And there's no reason in the wider Bitcoin economy for the ebbs and flows of this type. It's obviously, in my opinion, political maneuvering. And all of these things act to radically reduce the clout and influence of certain actors in the space. People have been shredding their reputations, not understanding that reputation in a decentralized system is not the same as reputation in politics. It's quite different. Reputation in politics is a 20th century thing. You've got a whole political and information industrial complex behind you to push your message and to make the sheeple forget what they heard about you a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The memory of Bitcoiners is like that of an elephant. Once you have tarnished your reputation, you cannot recover that. Everyone will always doubt what you say because you were involved in these schemes. So anyone who's allied themselves with the miners in China are going to find their influence in the ecosystem radically reduced. And that's going to mean that anything that these people push for in the future, this is why Gavin Andresen has dropped out of the public eye so much. He knows he has no clout, and everyone said, hey man, you're not doing us any favors. The same thing will happen with Jihan Wu and Roger Ver and what's his face, the Australian jackass, right, in the coming years. Now, more people, certain people will be able to rehabilitate their reputations by repeated good behavior, but you digging yourself out of a hole at that point. So the safe face-saving gesture of this consensus in New York is a very temporary Band-Aid that is just papering over a very long-term slide of clout by the Chinese contingent of miners and certain other players.
Yep, so many good points in there, Gabriel. I'm gonna have to rewatch this for sure to get all your points in memory. Because while I'm running the show here, I can't hear every single thing. But man, so many good points. I just want to echo a couple quick ones just before we introduce Chris here. Segwit2x. I think that we're all in agreement that Segwit2x has. Or sorry, that the UASF, the user-activated software, has in fact pushed up the dates for Segwit2x. I think we can all agree that it was because of the user-activated software that Segwit2x has a date of July 21st to be released.
100%. 100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I believe that this whole debate over these past couple of years, and most specifically with the Segwit2x, I believe a lot people have learned. I believe a lot of people have learned a lot about Bitcoin, about cryptography. This has opened up the minds and hearts of many people, if not millions of people, that are now asking themselves, what is money? You know, what is Bitcoin? Why do I have to? Why is this important? And
why are people even fighting over it? Like, what is about it? It's censorship, resistance. That's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. So, and then another final point is the mempool. You know, like you guys are saying, during the height of the debate, right, the mempool was just clogged to the top, right? We're just all the way to the top. And now that we've all agreed on Segwit2x, it's going down and down and down and down, which to me, of course, seems to be completely political, because as Gabriel said, that did not jive with the ebbs and flows of the transactions. It was completely political.
No, it was transaction spam. It was transaction spam.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, that gets into a little bit debate, which we won't do here, about what is spam, right? But clearly trying to harm the network by putting, you know, tens of thousands of transactions to fill up the mempool is probably not considered a good thing for the network, in my opinion. I think we can agree on that. So real quick, let's just introduce Chris Berneski joining us from Arc Blockchain. Chris, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Thanks so much for joining, man. We'll go with you. We'll ask you the question now on this, which is the first topic, which is Segwit2x. And we just want to know, what do you think about this conversation so far? What do you think about Segwit2x? What do you think about the 90% people signaling right now for the New York agreement? Give us your thoughts.
Oh, it's such a complicated question, and now I've been getting everyone's perspective too. I would say generally, what I will go back to for Bitcoin is that we will find a way to scale it. It may not be clean. We may fork, right? Like, that's a possibility. And when I think of Bitcoin as an anti-fragile system, that will be a stress, even though it'll be a temporary stress that I think the system will grow stronger from over time, right? So I'm not like, from a long term perspective, you know, when I think about holding Bitcoin for the next 10 years or whatever it may be, we're going to have volatility out of this. I've stopped trying to decide which way it goes and which side I want to be on and any of that. I don't have enough information. I don't have the full picture. And I know there have been wrongs on both sides, and I don't know who's more in the wrong, who's more in the right. I do just have faith that Bitcoin will make it through. And so do we do, yeah, so like if it's Segwit2x, that's the cleanest in terms of we avoid a chain split. If it gets messier than that, then, you know, we'll buckle our seatbelts and make our way through it.
Yeah, I really like to say that Bitcoin has always just been going downhill at 100 miles an hour on fire, heading towards a brick wall, right? But we never seem to hit the brick wall. Like,
or we go through the brick wall.
Yeah, at this point, we pretty much, and then there's another one after that. You know, so I mean, we all knew that this was going to be an uphill battle, right? We are literally taking, you know, fire from the gods here. We are taking the ability to create money and putting it back into the hands of the people, and this is unprecedented. We've never lived through anything like this before. So we are experiencing this renaissance of all of these people, from, you know, Bitcoin to Ethereum to Litecoin. All of this together combines to be a whole new way of thinking about money and really reinventing what money is. And
here's a concern, though. Despite all of the sort of my faith around Bitcoin scaling and continuing to exist and being unstoppable, my biggest concern out of all of this as I look around the overarching ecosystem is that the amount of resources, and I mean just like energy and bickering, and you know, we've been pouring ourselves into a software update to scale the system, whereas I feel like the energy, or I know the energy, could have been better applied elsewhere, right? And so while we are going through this process and we are scaling and the boardroom is open and, you know, we are seeing the sausage be made, so there's a quote I like: all creativity comes at the cost of maintenance. And scaling in some ways is a maintenance problem in terms of we've always had to scale, we will have to continue to scale. And I would say the more cleanly and quickly we can get through scaling debates and move on to adding, you know, extra feature or functionality or whatever it may be for Bitcoin, the better. So it's the resources, it's the vitriol and the time and the energy that has gone into this that I would say is the worst thing about it.
So I totally disagree, Chris. I'm sorry to jump in, but boy,
no, it's fine. That's fine.
I am definitely in disagreement with you. I'd like to echo what Charlie was just saying before you came on the show. Actually, maybe you would have jumped in and disagreed with him then too, because it's somewhat the opposite. And I'm definitely on Mr. Shrem's viewpoint. I agree with him that this process of working out the kinks and the public forum and all the communication between the different sides and how incredibly controversial it is and how incredibly contentious the communication has been is actually an amazingly bullish sign for Bitcoin. Meanwhile, a block gets produced by the Bitcoin network every 10 minutes like clockwork, or every, you know, whatever, every few minutes like clockwork, these blocks are coming out and people are using the Bitcoin blockchain to transact millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin every day. In fact, I believe we're heading toward $1 billion a day right now. Is that correct? What's the, Edward knows. It's something in the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin a day. This is a functioning ecosystem, and these upgrades are bringing up all these incredible emotions, but yet it's not breaking Bitcoin. And you know, maybe a hard fork could conceivably happen. Like I said, I don't believe it will, but of course that we're just predicting. But I have to disagree that the vitriol and all of the political wrangling and maneuvering is the sign of a healthy ecosystem. In a
100%.
decentralized situation, it's the emotions and all the power behind it. It's a wonderful thing. And I think all this vitriol, you should be celebrating it. It's wonderful.
100%. I completely agree. And it's not going to be clean. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be all holding hands. You're going to have different sides. You're going to have people disagreeing. You're going to have, you know, name calling and personal attacks. But this is what we learn from. And at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves this question, guys: are we all incentivized by the same thing? And we all are. We all want Bitcoin to succeed. We all want the price to go up. And we all, whatever reason that we got involved in this thing in the first place, we all have the same reasoning. We all want this project to succeed. So as long as we all have the same agenda and we all continue to have the same agenda, a solution is going to work itself out at the end of the day. Now, we may disagree on the process and how we want it to scale and how we want things to play themselves out, but that's okay. Like, I disagree with people all the time. Sometimes I have the problem of personally attacking people, and I really try to not do it, but I try to stay away from that. And I'm not perfect, but I really hope we learn from this. It's like, it's not productive to attack people. But at the same time, I know it's fun sometimes, but at the same time, like, we all have the same agenda. You take someone like Craig Wright, his agenda is different than ours. And so we have to make sure that when we're dealing with someone who claims to want Bitcoin to succeed, we have to ask ourselves the question: what's their agenda? What's the reason that they're involved in this in the first place? And that's what I try to ask myself.
Absolutely good point. Chris, did you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so I would say that generally, on a deeper level, we are in agreement in that Bitcoin has not stopped functioning once, right? And so I'm a fan of looking at the network, right? And the data and the health in terms of the hash rate or the transaction volume and the things that you reference, right? And so when we look at daily transaction volume for Bitcoin, you know, this year is about triple right now. So we're in we crossed $1 billion USD at one point, but I would say on average this year, we've been transacting in the 400 to 500 million day on average if you just took the whole year. When you look at 2016, we were in the 160 million range. So we've tripled, and 2016 was growth of 60% off of 2015, or no, 120%. So anyway, the transaction volume is growing, the hash rate is growing, the core metrics that signify health of the network as a transactional medium are all strong. And that is bullish for Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin markets are climbing a wall of worry. Like Bitcoin is more of a consensus short in the markets in a way. In terms of the environment is more negative for Bitcoin than other crypto assets right now. But despite all of this, it continues to function, and it continues, at least of late, appreciate. We've tripled since the start of this year, right? All of that said, I guess here's my point. Since Bitcoin is the oldest of the cryptocurrencies, we are seeing it operate at the greatest scale and with the greatest mix of cast of characters.
Yes.
I think that, you know, maybe me as an idealist or me as a hippie or me as a lover, right, wants us to be able to more coherently push forward, innovate forward. And I feel like we could do that at a quicker rate than we currently do. That doesn't mean that it's not the optimal rate.
How can we do that? How can we do that?
Well, so when I go back and I think about segregated witness, right, and coming out from the Hong Kong scaling agreement, and I think I remember when it first rolled out in November of 2016, right, it was kind of like consensus, this will be implemented pretty quickly and we'll be into second layer stuff and we'll be experimenting with side chains. And the scripting
I want to see
more
confidential transactions.
I
want to see all these really cool stuff that we can easily implement.
That's what I mean to say. And so it's not that Bitcoin is not thriving. Bitcoin is thriving, and it's proving its resilience and all of that. And that is not at all the argument, I think, amongst any of us here, right? We're all on the same page with that. I guess what I'm thinking about is the brilliance of the developers and the community, and that I think we can evolve more quickly with the functionality we want, if we want that for Bitcoin, because the functionality compromises security in a way too.
I don't think we can. I don't think we can. I think that I think Bitcoin is a money. It is a crypto money that depends on electrical power and labor for its production. As such, Bitcoin represents a scarce commodity. And when you are dealing with situations of scarcity, it becomes extremely emotional. This is not like Linux forks where it's like, all right, cool, make your own fork. Maybe I'll try Debian next time, and then you can use my distro, and everybody, it's cool. It's just a fun ecosystem. No, this is a scarce resource. Every Bitcoin is extremely valuable and getting more so every second. And so there's a reason they call economics the dismal science. It's the study of scarcity. And Bitcoin is scarce. It's the first digitally scarce anything. Everything digital before Bitcoin.
Ethereum has no market cap, and most of these other tokens and coins don't have, not market cap, don't have a cap on the amount of tokens and coins that can create. Like look at Bancor. Bancor can add, delete tokens at will. And
sure, but even the cryptos that are scarce, I mean, those are technically scarce digital commodities too, but of course Bitcoin's the first one. But regardless, I mean, these things that people put work and electrical power and investment into are scarce resources. And there's no situation where everybody's views are going to be aligned. Like Charlie said, hey, I think the people who really believe in Bitcoin all believe the same thing and kind of want the same thing. But then there are these actors in the ecosystem who don't want that, and they want something else. They want to control the code base. They want to control the mining infrastructure. They want to control this or that. And so there's always going to be this contention, Chris. And I don't think that we're going to get away from it. What I would say that is probably aligned with what you're saying actually is we can all learn from the fallacies that hold us back. We can learn from the mistakes that people make in their messaging. And I'm really, like Charlie, I'm very encouraged socially by the goings on and the conversations, because
Absolutely.
I do feel that the correct technical solutions are being arrived at through this contentious process. And I also hold out hope for the future that we can arrive at the technical solutions with less vitriol in the future by gravitating toward more effective and more, I'll just say effective rhetoric. You know, ad hominems are kind of ineffectual.
I'm 100% there with you.
Yeah, and it's getting, you know, like Charlie said, it's difficult sometimes to not throw out personal attacks when you see what they're doing. Like, you totally see that this is their agenda, this is what they're doing, this is clear, and it's just like, you know, I've definitely been known to throw a few attacks at Roger Ver every now and again, and you know, it's really hard. We have to take it back and realize that everybody's got an agenda. Everybody thinks what they're doing is right. You know, no matter if we think it's right or wrong, it's, you know, at the end of the day, you know, as Jimmy Song would agree with, at the end of the day, Bitcoin doesn't care, right? And so we just have to try to learn, like Gabriel said, just try to learn from our mistakes, learn from doing personal attacks and ad hominems, learn that doesn't actually get us anywhere. You know, it's all about the technical debate. But of course, this has been going on for so long that it is getting more difficult to not get into the mud. And I think everybody at this point has a little dirt on them. But yeah, it's definitely difficult. What I do want to ask the panelists real quick, just one by one, Charlie, we'll ask you first, is do you think that there will be a fork at all from either the user-activated soft fork or Segwit2x? Do you think that we're looking coming July, August or so?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, but I wanted to ask everybody, because nobody can actually know for sure. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts and predictions.
Yeah, I think everything is going to work out pretty well. We've seen in the past that it almost always does. The Bitcoin price is high, and after these corrections, it continues to grow consistently. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Absolutely. Edward, we'll go with you next. Do you think that there's actually going to be a fork on July, August?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's the one thing that I think everybody wants to avoid. Like, the one overriding thing that everybody has in this space is self-preservation. And if you don't have that, you're either, I don't know, making a mistake, or you're a nefarious actor. But everybody wants Bitcoin to be the best investment there's ever been in human history. They want it to be the most beneficial to society at displacing all these corrupt, fraudulent, centralized parties. And I think that is the one thing that is going to align everybody. But I think, personally, I don't think we're going to, I don't think we're going to see a hard fork, or anybody wants a hard fork, to be honest. I think deep down, they just it's just such a risk, like to risk the primary value proposition of Bitcoin for any chance of this contentious. I mean, it's just a massive risk. That's my opinion.
Absolutely couldn't agree more. We'll go with Chris next, and then Gabriel. Chris, do you see a fork actually coming? I mean, we know we can't actually predict it, but what would you think? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to see a fork or no?
It could come down in some ways to the 11th hour. I mean, Segwit2x gets activated a week before the August 1st deadline.
That's when it's released, July 21st. So that's when miners are expected to start running it. Yeah.
So we'll have a lot more information then. I agree with what everyone has said thus far, that by and large the community wants to avoid a chain split.
Yeah, the beta is going to be out in 5 days, actually.
The beta's out in 5 days. Okay,
yeah.
So that's helpful. And that said, I don't know how much of a power play this all becomes. Like, the political aspect is just something I don't have enough clarity on, and others here may have better clarity on that than I have. If it comes down to being a real power play between, do the miners hold the power or do the developers hold the power, and someone really wants to put their foot in the ground, that's where we could get into a scary situation. I think it would come down to who has more to lose economically, right? Who could sustain through a fork, and it would actually be more taxing to the miners because they are outputting energy every single day, right? Like, the network burns $1 million a day, right? So the miners bleed money if Bitcoin splits and drops in value much more on a daily basis than the developers do. And so I do think that we will find, my hope is we don't have a chain split, but I give it non-trivial odds, minority odds, but it could happen. It could happen. It would be crazy. Crazy.
Okay, let's go with Gabriel next. What do you think, man? About you think we're going to see a fork in July or August? What do you think?
Well, I agree with Chris that it would be crazy if it happened, and I agree that it is a non-zero chance of happening. But I would say that, in my opinion, it is a trivial amount. I would definitely place the likelihood at 1% or less. As Edward pointed out, the risk to the economic stakeholders in that situation is far too great for them to actually do it. And if you look at the history of those threatening hard forks, Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin NG, and Bitcoin, there's been actually quite a number of it's false hard fork threats that just kind of evaporated and nobody really talked about it again, kind of. And so I feel like, you know, as Vortex, as he pointed out earlier in the show, you know, a few months in the Bitcoin story packs the punch of a decade in maybe what we think of as traditional history. And, you know, these things like Bitcoin XT, that was 2 years ago. And it seems like a lifetime. I mean, Bitcoin was in the midst of a terrible bear run in the market. And you know, we started up, you know, the shows at that time, and we were just completely bullish and like, well, why isn't anybody buying this totally valuable, you know, scarce asset here? So there's been hard fork threats in the past. They came to nothing. The math does not add up for miners to hard fork in this year. It totally does not add up for them at all, and it would be really shooting themselves in the foot, in my opinion. And the fact that the miners, that Jihan, the Bitmain, and these other miners were against Segwit earlier this year, because I didn't know about ASIC boost, and I was thinking that the delaying upgrades in order to collect fees seemed a little bit specious. I was actually under the impression that there might be an external attack on the Bitcoin network. I mean, when you talk about game theory, within Bitcoin is one set of game theory. That, you know, within the Bitcoin ecosystem, you have one game theoretical framework. But of course, there's the wider world of the game theoretical framework between internal and external forces within Bitcoin. And so I would say that it is conceivable that at some point, an external actor will become so threatened by the existence of Bitcoin that they may try to overtly force a hard fork, at which point we will see what the Bitcoin ecosystem is really made of. I don't think we're quite there yet. After the revelations of ASIC boost and some other analysis in the sector, I think we're still dealing with internal game theory, and as such, I believe that the incentives still align, as Chris and Edward pointed out, for miners to continue on with one chain.
Yep, absolutely. And so, you know, just to echo, I guess, what everybody else thinks, I too really do not believe that there's going to be a fork. There has been idle threats and posturing for years now, and I really do not believe that there's going to be a fork on July or August. I think that this will be a non-event. You know, John Light really pushes this and really shares this belief that it's going to be a non-event because everybody agrees on Segwit. Everybody agrees that Segwit is needed and is a good solution and is a good technology. So it's going to be a non-event. We're going to Bitcoin, just like, you know, the halving. Everybody thought that Bitcoin might die from the halving, keep on going. Segwit will get activated on the network, and, you know, the Bitcoin price will reflect this. So I guess so far we all don't really believe that there's going to be a fork, but there is, of course, a small percentage chance of it, a very small percent. But that percentage always exists, right? Because anybody at any time can fork Bitcoin, but nobody has done it yet. And there is, of course, economic and game theory reasons for this. And so again, I believe, again, believe that this is going to be a non-event. So we can move on to the next subject, unless anybody else has anything else to say about
Ethereum is getting hammered right now.
Yeah, that's we're about to get into that right now, actually. So with let's just jump right in. With the Ethereum Flash Crash this week, I'm going to ask you, Charlie.
It's not over.
It's not over. I guess it's still going.
We're mid-crash right now.
I mean, look, watch Poloniex right now. I mean, it's gonna break 300 any minute. It's a core market cap.
Yeah, so absolutely crazy.
It's bringing Bitcoin down too. It's annoying me. We're like on a raft and trying to hold Ethereum up.
Crazy times in crypto as always, people. But let me ask you, Charlie, what did you, with the recent flash crash this week, kind of plummeting Ethereum down to 10 cents for a brief period? Do you think this is the beginning of the end for Ethereum, or will there be more flash crashes like this in the future? And what do you think about this flash crash and what caused it?
Oh, you learn lessons from that. Things that has happened in Bitcoin before, but I mean, it's crazy to see someone put a $30 million market order as a sell, and what he probably just did was, he probably meant to put up some like sell walls, or I don't know, maybe he was like drinking or something happened, but he pushed one button and it should ask for like a confirmation, like, are you sure you want to put a $30 million sell order? And he clicked yes. But it's pretty scary how like something like that could affect a whole platform. It just goes to show you how thin the order books are. You're talking about, a global platform that we're talking about changing the world. Yet one person can put $30 million on one exchange and affect this whole thing so insanely. So, yeah.
It's true. I mean, I agree that I continue to try to tell people both on my show and on Twitter that this is the early days, people. This is, it's 2017. We think, oh, we're living in the future with, some artificial intelligence and driving cars, self-driving cars. But look, when in cryptocurrency, we are in the 80s. Okay, this is early days. So we have a ton of thin order books, like you said, Charlie. And I believe there's going to be a lot more of these flash crashes in Ethereum, of all of this locked up, all these ICOs and things like that. So it's just really early days. I wanted to echo that these books are thin and it's early days, and this could very much happen again. Did you have anything else, Charlie, or should I?
Well, what I was going to say was right now, these ICOs that raised money around $400, like they're down like 30% now, just because the price is like $300. So like you said, they have to protect their investment and protect their future. So what you had was $100 million worth one day is now only worth $70 million today. That's $30 million lost before the platform even launched yet. What does that tell you?
It tells me that's some scary shit to invest in.
Yeah. So we're going to see either some of these projects like add more tokens or dump all their ETH, and that's what this could very well, this is what it did. I work in the ICO OTC markets. I do a lot of brokering for over-the-counter trades. Bitcoin is very liquid, so it's very easy to do OTC trades. So with an OTC trade, the majority of Bitcoin volume and of buying and selling actually happens not on exchanges but on OTC. So for example, someone will come to me tonight and say, Charlie, I have 500 Bitcoin for sale. And then I'll go to a seller in China and say, all right, 5 Bitcoin, 100 Bitcoin is available. He'll tell me the rate. I'll tell the buyer the rate, and that'll be that. I don't personally take any possession of any money. I just introduce these people to each other. And then the buyer will wire the seller money. And then once the seller gets the USD, he'll send the Bitcoin to him. And the reason he's able to do that without actually getting the Bitcoin first is because there's enough liquidity and there's enough Bitcoin on the other side to hedge. With Ethereum OTC, I've yet to find a buyer who's willing to do it that way. They'll almost always tell me, I need the Ether first before I send the wires out. And that's because the market is so illiquid and there's just so much uncertainty in the Ethereum OTC markets where the price is going to be tomorrow, and do I have enough Ethereum on the other side to hedge, or I have enough buyers and sellers on the other side to buy and sell. It should just go to show you, like you said, it's sort of immature and premature markets. It's not anything, and that's not anyone's fault. It's just Bitcoin is 8 years old and Ethereum is what, 2 or 3. Like I don't remember. Whatever project sticks around for 5-10 years, including Bitcoin, those projects will be more liquid, just like Bitcoin is today. But people forget sometimes the differences between these markets. You have to remember that.
Absolutely. And just mentioning early days, looks like Coinbase is down yet again, as they tend to do during large amounts of volume. Adam, this is definitely an immature market at this point, but more and more people are coming into it. And really, I mean, we're over $110 billion in market cap right now, and it's just the beginning. I think it's going to be really crazy. So let's see, who's I going to go with next? I think Chris. Chris Berneski, we'll go with you next. What do you think about this Ethereum flash crash? Coinbase going down, early days. What do you think about this?
I think the key for this one, I mean, there were a few Ethereum network problems going on in the background, right? From the status ICO. So there was a confluence of events, right? You had the Ethereum network getting clogged, and that came together in terms of, just weakness for Ethereum overall. That came together with the fat finger sell order on GDAX, which basically ate through their order book, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is that's not an Ethereum network problem, right? Just as when exchanges like Bitfinex or whatever it may be in Bitcoin encounter a problem. I think there's a few things I took away from it. I appreciated the insight from Charlie on the OTC desks for Ethereum, and just the Bitcoin desks having a lot more depth. That said, Coinbase will get a lot of flack in this community, and I know that people on this show have varying opinions of Coinbase as well, and that's all, everyone's going to have their opinion. What GDAX did in reimbursing the customers, I would say was honorable. When I read...
It was honorable.
When I read from their blog, they say, for customers who had buy orders filled, we are honoring all executed orders and no trades will be reversed. So the people who made money buying Ether at 10 cents in Ether get to keep that. And then for affected customers who had margin calls or stop loss orders executed, we are crediting you using company funds. That is not a cheap remedy.
No.
And so for me, with GDAX, this is an extremely professional choice. They're doing it, out of goodwill for their customers and clients, right? And I think that this is a sign of professionalism or professionalization of exchanges, right? And while we would never have something like this happen well, I shouldn't say never, but within the equity markets, right, in the New York Stock Exchange, things are so liquid. And this kind of goes back to what Charlie was saying prior. So liquid that we wouldn't have a crash of 95% like that for a single asset. We've had crashes like 20%, right, in a day for equities. But my main takeaway from this is it's a sign of increasing accountability and professional services provided by application layers on top of these crypto assets.
Very interesting stuff. We'll go with Edward next. What do you think about the...
Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy, and it really shows the risk of trading illiquid markets. I mean, for one person to wipe out and the entire order book and to get that much slippage on the exchange is just absolutely insane. And one thing I'll say to people is, with altcoins, you got to be really careful with trading on margin. I mean, for example, if you have a flash crash and you're trading on spot, it's not a problem because you always get the bounce back. But if you're trading margin, you get stopped out your position, or you get completely wiped out because you haven't got set risk, then you're set to lose so much. And one thing I'll say is that it's so risky in altcoins is that a lot of people set mental stop losses when trading on margin because you get a lot of slippage. And if you set hard stop limits and the market's very volatile, because sometimes you'll just get a wick down candle and it'll bounce straight back.
Yeah.
If you set a hard stop, you're going to get stopped out your trade. So a lot of people set mental ones where they're like, well, if it drops below this price, I will manually come out of my trade. And so that's the problem when you have markets like this, and you get, because you could just wake up one morning and your entire collateral is gone from that margin trade. And it's like, wow. And one thing as well, if we come to the end of this old cycle, then we're probably going to see a lot more instances of this when this old coin bubble really starts to sell off. And I don't know when that's going to be. It could go a lot further yet. But from one thing I've seen is that these old cycles are very cyclical. And you know, if we get people panicking sometime in the future, like we could see massive wicks down. But you can also turn it into a trading strategy. Like if you've got some Bitcoin sitting on exchanges, just put in some really low orders on these on these exchanges. And I think some people were buying like on that flash crash, they bought for 10 cents.
Yeah, they were buying ETH
ether.
10 cents. Crazy.
That's like the ultimate bounce play trade right there. Like, yeah, you'll do well to do a better one than that. But yeah, at the same time, like if I'm the only time I ever use margin on exchanges, if there's a really clear breakdown pattern, I don't normally go long. It's normally the short side where I will take a margin position to short. But I mean, yeah, you just got to be so careful with these liquid exchanges. And in terms of them, like, I think it's fine. Like the fact that CoinDesk is going to make them whole for some of those trades, like it's their money, and I think, you know, they can choose to do that whatever they like. It's very different if they were using like a third party's money, like you saw with the bank bailouts in 2008. But if they want to use their money to make these people whole in order to keep the reputation of their platform, then yeah, I think that's completely up to them.
Yep, absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting. We're getting kind of mixed reports, because we're getting reports from some people that say they got their trades reversed. And then we're getting reports from others saying that they couldn't get it reversed. And then we're getting reports about people saying that their ETH is completely lost. Like there was a couple of tweets I saw that where people's Ethereum were literally completely lost. Like there was no history of the transaction at all. And so that is very scary, you know, and must be echoed, because this is early days. People need to know that the Ethereum platform is not mature yet. You know, really either is Bitcoin, but of course Bitcoin is much further down the time space continuum than Ethereum. So Ethereum will have all sorts of scaling issues to deal with as more and more people join the platform. And
one of the only risks with it is the moral hazard. I mean, the whole point of having an event like that is that it teaches people to have set risk, to not take great risk, to really look at the platforms that they're on, see if they've got the right liquidity. When you have instances like this, then people think, well, it's a bit like FSCS and FDIC deposit insurance. So you don't really have to look at the state of the bank that you hold your money, because someone's going to make you whole at the end of it. So I think that's one thing you got to be careful of when you do things like this.
Absolutely. And, you know, there are a few people that did sort of anticipate this. Very few people, of course, but there is some people I know that, like Andrew DeSantis, who's a well-known security researcher and hacker. He actually had some buys, some super low buys on various exchanges for like $100 or $200, something really cheap, because he anticipated something like this happening, and all of his buys got hit.
I think it was $14, actually. That was back in February. He picked up a good chunk of Bitcoin. He set up. I asked him actually recently when he set up the order. He said he was up for a few weeks on Bitfinex, and I think it was $14 where his trade executed. I'm assuming there must have been a few thousand worth, or else it wouldn't have been worth it to him, I think, to set up the trade. So he actually was he's a malware researcher, but he also got hit by ransomware which is just terrible practice. I mean, geez, you know, I wouldn't want him securing my system if he got hacked himself. He's a great guy, but he got nailed, and he lost a big chunk of Bitcoin. And I think he recently said that that helped him to recover, you know, what he had lost by doing these bounce trades. You know, so it's not something that's totally foreign to the crypto markets. You know, I think we're going to see more of this type of stuff. Like you said, it's, you know, the very low liquidity markets and very amateur traders. You know, there's no AML, KYC, and there's no, you know, what do you call it? Accredited investor screen for, you know, to keep out 12-year-olds with, you know, a few Ethereum Classic or, you know, Feathercoin or whatever that they want to throw on Poloniex and just screw around. And I think, you know, a lot of people are going to get screwed by that. I think that allowing the trade to go through without multiple warnings, or even just allowing trades of that size to go through, you know, shouldn't exchanges generally have a cap on trade size, that where if it's too big of a percentage of the entire order book, they just say, hey, no, you can't do that. You can only trade up to 30% of the size of the order book or something. I mean, you think they'd have some breakers like that. If they didn't in place, that's a real sign of some total unprofessionalism, and having to make them whole, in my opinion, does not reflect well on them. In fact,
I'm sure Coinbase has some consultants that they've been hiring from various stock exchanges that are going to come and help them prevent something like this happen in the future.
GDAX doesn't already have those people on staff, that's a real testament to their lack of professionalism, in my opinion, and making people whole from the mistakes in your exchange.
GDAX is down right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time the price is going crazy, they're like
Right.
the ultimate like protection against price dumping.
Right. So, I mean, this is like Mt. Gox, chapter 2. I think basically, this is just a typical sign of the maturation of the ecosystem. The exchanges have gotten a lot less centralized now that there are more of them in various countries, and that's a good thing, but there's still low liquidity and low professionalism. I think the flash crash, the DDoS crashes and just regular, DOS crashes that we're seeing as we speak, and also trying to make people whole and protect their reputation. That's just digging, in my opinion, that's digging their grave even further. I think, they're just obviously lost and complete losers. What are they doing with those hundreds of millions of dollars? What total losers? I'm really disappointed in them. And I think actually it's typical for, when these sort of corporate types get into Bitcoin and they don't actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, it is early days, and for all of those hundreds of millions of dollars, we do hope that they will hire more people and that they will help the ecosystem mature. And we'll have to see where it goes. But I think that's good for the topics today. I did have one more topic, but Charlie has to go, so I wanted to go ahead and just ask everybody, please share out the show. Give us a thumbs up if you like us. Give us a thumbs down if you don't like us. We're really having a good time here on the World Crypto Network. We have a ton of people in the chat, over 550 live viewers. So let's just get on with the show here. Charlie, just a question for you. I'll have a question and somebody else wants to join in. So just my first question for you, Charlie, let me find it here. Okay, so I was just wondering, in general, Charlie, like, how do you feel, if at all, how do you feel crypto has changed since you've completed serving your sentence? Like, how do you feel since before going and then coming out? How do you feel it's changed in general?
The crypto world has really gotten a lot bigger. I can say that. It's definitely, like you hit it right on the nail on the head earlier. Emotional. It's gotten a lot more emotional. I missed a lot of that. I wasn't around for the original Hong Kong agreement. I wasn't around for Bitcoin XT. I wasn't around for the whole Gavin and Andreessen thing, the original Craig Wright thing. Like, not only what I wasn't around, but like I didn't even know about it. Like, I was sitting along and doing my own thing during that whole saga, that whole year. So I missed a lot of that. And I'm really thankful I did, though, because I heard a lot of shit went down. But I'm more bullish on crypto now more than ever. If there are any doubts in my head that Bitcoin and blockchain technology is the future, and will definitely be something that every human being is using for some aspect of their lives 10 or 15 years from now. If I had any doubts in the past, I have none now, because we wouldn't care so much about it if none of us thought that too. So
Absolutely. I mean,
I have no doubt that one Bitcoin will be worth more than $1 million at some point down the road. So
awesome. I know you got to go, Troy. Maybe just one more question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just one last one. Just tell us what has you most excited right now in the crypto space, and what are you working on personally?
So I'm the one of the things that wasn't possible before is to basically help support all these different projects, but also, for lack of a better term, like, I use like 5 different apps on my phone right now to like do all these different things. And so I came on board Jax 5 weeks ago, or 2 months ago. For those who don't know, Jax is a multi-platform, multi-token and coin wallet. So we're on all the different platforms, Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, iPhone, Chrome extension, and we support Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash, Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, Dogecoin, all these different coins, always adding more. But even bigger than that, my vision for the project is to be an all-in-one experience for not just Bitcoin, but for everything, and not just your wallet, but portfolio, charts, all these different things in one browser experience, all encrypted, messaging, everything, email, everything derived from your 12-word seed. And so you can be at a public computer in China or whatever you want and be able to have your whole life there with you. That's like my goal to build, because freedom of privacy should be, and I believe is, a basic human right. We have a human right to privacy. Just like I could stand in a room and have a private conversation with someone without anyone else listening, I should be able to have the same expectation of privacy on the internet. And whatever I can do to push that goal and to push that forward, I'm going to be able to be a part of. And the biggest problem right now with privacy and security on the internet is it's not convenient. Using Tor is not easy and convenient. Using different messaging apps is not easy and convenient. Hell, using Bitcoin is not easy as convenient as I want it to be. PGP email is not easy and convenient. Once we get it to a point where it's convenient and easy and the user experience is just as good, if not better, as Facebook and emails and whatever we're using today, people will start to use those other options better. So Bitcoin is just the money aspect of it, but everything else, we need data, value, everything. That's what we're going to do going forward.
Absolutely awesome. And I'm with you. I really am excited for the future of crypto, and we really are early days. And I hope that entrepreneurs like yourself and many others can really make that experience easier and better for everybody. Because as we know, as Andreas always likes to say, 20 years ago, no one, in order to use your email, you had to compile it in Linux and be a programmer.
Exactly.
And now you can swipe. One swipe.
Swipes. It's easy. I want Bitcoin to be swipe, send to you, swipe, send to someone in Germany, swipe Antarctica, but knowing that no one can freeze that. And it's fully decentral. That's the key. Anyway, thanks for having me on the show. This is awesome. I didn't expect to be here for like almost an hour and a half now. Awesome.
Awesome,
have
Charlie.
a great day,
So
guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, we're going to end the show right now. So so thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. We had over 550 people here at the height. So thanks again. Charlie, tell us people, where can we find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at @CharlieShrem.
Awesome. And then Chris, thanks for joining. I know you're a little bit late, but thanks so much for joining us, man.
My bad.
We really appreciate your feedback and comment. And I hope where can we find you, Chris?
I'm on Twitter as well at ARK Blockchain. Thanks you guys for having me.
Awesome. Gabriel, Mr. Gabriel Divine, thanks again, man, for joining us. Tell everybody where can we find you?
Best place is on Twitter. I've been getting even more into Twitter lately. Gabriel Divine, a lot of great Bitcoin conversation there. So I'll see you over there. And Charlie, I want to say I completely agree with you that UX is a huge thing for the future. And my story of the week, which we don't have on this show, is for UX on Bitcoin is the Bitcoin emoji. Big announcement, Bitcoin emoji.
Awesome. All right, Edward from Renegade Investor, thanks so much again for joining us. Again, everybody needs to check out this guy's videos on his YouTube channel. Edward, where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at SharkyBit. You can also find my website, Renegade Investor. From there, I also link my YouTube channel, Renegade Investor. So I'm always trying to put out content to try and educate people in an entertaining way about Bitcoin. I just did a video as well to explain about how is altcoins versus Bitcoin and ICOs, and how Bitcoin is really the Godzilla.
Yeah,
the Godzilla.
So entertaining. It's the
Godzilla of the cryptocurrency world, and all the ICOs are kind of like gremlins. So it's a fun video, but I'm just trying to find ways to sort of teach people about Bitcoin. But I just want to say thanks for coming on the show. I just want to say as well, like, after I get off these shows, I find it hard to sleep because everyone just talks so passionately, and I'm just so wired I can't sleep sometimes. But yeah, thanks so much for allowing me to come on.
Absolutely, Edward. Thanks so much. We enjoy your passion. We enjoy everybody's passion here on the panel. I think it's clear that everybody in crypto sees something in Bitcoin and really sees something that this is going to be the future. And so thanks again, guys, for joining us. I'll be back again every other Sunday at noon, 12 p.m. Pacific. The next guest we'll have is Trace Mayer, so that should be a great show as well. And then if you guys ever want to have me for consulting to talk about Bitcoin or anything like that, I'm available at bitcoinhelp@protonmail.com. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you have a good weekend. And until then, keep talking Bitcoin. See you guys.
Sounds great. Bye.